who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by USA Today. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. Your reader today is Alan Blackburn. Trump's primary success rate is 98%, but it could come at a cost to his party and agenda. With 5 months left until the 2026 elections, President Donald Trump holds a near-perfect record when it comes to endorsing winning Republican primary candidates. In only a few cases has his preferred candidate lost this year, demonstrating that even as Trump's nationwide popularity sags, he remains the fractured Make America Great Again movement's dominant figure. A review of Trump's picks by Ballotpedia shows that out of 312 primary endorsements, the president carries a 98% success rate in GOP contests across congressional, state legislative, and statewide elections. The president bragged about that record when reacting to New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's preferred candidate's recent sweep. On that same day, more than a dozen Trump contenders across multiple states prevailed in their Republican primaries. Among them were first-time candidates such as Anthony Constantino, an upstate New York sticker company CEO who beat out Assemblymember Robert Smullen, the state GOP's preferred candidate, by about 20 percentage points for a seat previously held by Representative Elise Stefanik. "Congratulations, Mr. Mayor," Trump said in a June 24th social media post. "I went 16-0 last night, helping to elect American patriots, and the media doesn't say a word. But a closer examination paints a more complicated picture. In 6 of those 16 elections, Trump backed up an incumbent without a primary challenger, such as Representative Michael Lawler of New York, a moderate who ran unopposed. The president also appears to be counting the South Carolina runoff for governor as 2 wins after endorsing both candidates in that race. But Trump's choices have reshaped the Republican Party by crushing veteran conservative lawmakers' careers. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy, Texas Senator John Cornyn, and Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie have been catapulted out of office this year for having disagreed with Trump at one point or another. The president also puts his large network's muscle into defeating 5 of the 7 Indiana state legislators who defied him on withdrawing the state's congressional maps. Political observers say Trump wields his influence in ways rarely done by previous presidents, who usually avoided intra-party political battles. In 2022, when Democrats were facing a resurgent GOP poised to retake Congress, former President Joe Biden endorsed in only 5 congressional races during that cycle, including backing then Kurt Schrader, an Oregon moderate, facing a progressive challenger. That opponent, Jamie McLeod Skinner, won the primary but lost the general election. There's no modern president whose influence within his party has come anywhere close to that of Donald Trump, in terms of both being willing to endorse and then having success with his endorsements. It's very difficult for someone to win if Trump endorsed their opponent, he added. It's not impossible in an overwhelming majority of races his endorsed candidate wins, and that's really shaped Republican politics in Congress, even down to the state legislative level. As much as Trump's allies boast about the power of him endorsing a candidate, there have been notable losses in that spotlight. Republican voters in Iowa's gubernatorial primary went with Zach Lawn in a bruising 5-person primary. Trump also came up short in Georgia gubernatorial primary this year when Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones lost to Rick Jackson. Your short shower could go a long way. Households across the United States are pressured to save water. Americans across the nation are being asked or ordered to conserve water thanks to widespread drought, made even worse by a punishing heat wave. It's being felt this summer in Virginia, the Carolinas, Pennsylvania, Colorado, New Jersey, and more. Take shorter showers, turn the water off while you brush your teeth, don't wash your car at home, or water your lawn. These are some of the asks residents and communities around the country. Some asks are voluntary, others have outright banned water wasting with threats of fines. Meanwhile, agricultural uses far more water than households in the United States. So does your shorter shower or unwatered lawn really make a difference? Yes, but it's complicated. Household water comes from a limited supply, often unrelated, and closed off from the vast agricultural water supply. Though that setup varies by region, local governments do actually need people's help to protect their limited residential water supply. The bottom line, for a shorter shower to make a difference, everyone needs to get on board. It's just like voting. Any one vote doesn't matter, but collectively voting does matter. If you live in a city of 1 million people, your 15% cut in water isn't going to save the city. But if everybody does it, or if half the people do it, then you really have an effect. As of July 2nd, the drought monitor recorded that nearly half of continental United States is in at least a moderate stage of drought, and more than 30% is classified as at least severe drought. Regions stricken with the worst drought conditions include the West, where wildfires have been raging, parts of the High Plains, and regions of the Southeast and the Mid-Atlantic. Virginia Governor Spanberger is urging all state residents, especially those in the South Side of Central Virginia, to conserve water as the drought creates challenges for communities and farmers. On July 1st, the city of Richmond, Virginia's capital, announced voluntary water restrictions, saying such measures are implemented when average water flows drop to 1,700 cubic feet per second for 14 consecutive days. Those measures also focus on outdoor watering. Nelson County, Virginia residents are asked to do the following on a voluntary basis. Turn off faucets while brushing your teeth, washing hands, and shaving. Water lawns only when necessary before 10 a.m. to reduce evaporation. Take shorter showers. And use a commercial car wash. Use only full loads of laundry and dishes so you can fix leaky pipes and waters. And reuse water for watering plants or cleaning instead. Do the restrictions really help? On a local scale, water consumption is broken up into 3 categories: household use, industrial or commercial use, restaurants or hospitals. Another water use controversy comes from data centers increasingly used to fuel artificial intelligence, which use huge amounts of water and can drive up utility rates for nearby residents. Large data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons of water a day, according to the Environmental and Energy Institute. An heir wants a Trump deal. This is Cuba's little-known power broker holds the island's future in his hands. The Cordofo near Raul Castro's deck buzzed inside his wood-paneled office like it was 1984. This time, someone else answered. Raul Castro, Cuba's former president, brother to Fidel, was instead waiting at home for the news from his lunch date. His favorite grandson, his right-hand man, who is Raul Guillermo Rodriguez Castro, 42 years old. The man Cubans call El Cangrejo, translated as the crab, is now the one in seat of power in that very office. Tall and thick-set with piercing light green eyes, a buzz cut, designer clothes, and a deep raspy voice that echoes his great-uncle Fidel's, who is too busy at the moment to speak to his 95-year-old grandfather. I've never been interested in politics, he said, and it's never been a calling of mine during an exclusive series of interviews with USA Today. But if at some point the revolution needs me to step up, I will do it. He stressed he would never sacrifice the principles of Cuba's 1959 revolution or the nation's sovereignty. Rodriguez Castro is unknown to many outside Cuba. He holds no formal government office and rarely appears in the state media. He had never before spoken to a U.S. media outlet. And he's a back-channel operator who has undeniable status, authority, and clout, much of it derived from his last name. Now the younger Castro is the one in a position to negotiate for the future of his country. The former bodyguard to his grandfather wants to deal directly with President Donald Trump. I can negotiate with anyone designated by the U.S., Rodriguez Castro said, if given the opportunity, of course, with Trump. There is no time to waste. Cuba faces a cratered economy, a humanitarian crisis, and an oil blockade from the Trump administration. He wants to avoid being the next Venezuela as the United States levels sanctions and raises a military threat unseen between the countries since the 1962 missile crisis. Rodriguez Castro could be the bridge between both sides. At the height of sending his grandfather's old office atop Havana's convention center, Rodriguez Castro discussed his vision for the future of Cuba. He only recently emerged from his grandfather's shadow, but he was groomed for leadership. He is Raul Castro's eldest grandson, son of the late General Luis Alberto Rodriguez Lopez Calleja, the man who ran GAESA, the opaque country run by Cuba's military that underpins swaths of the Cuban economy. He grew up in the same building as his grandparents and moved in with them when he turned 18. He spent many of his formative years surrounded by senior regime officials, generals, security officers, intelligence agents, and of course his grandfather. And they became his entire world. But now he's moved beyond boyhood notions of spy games. He made sure of that from the time his grandson, Raul Castro made sure of that from the time his grandson was a teenager. He sat in on every important meeting in Cuban state affairs, including hours of heated discussions between Fidel and Raul. It is for this reason he developed a second moniker, Raulito, which translates as Little Raul. He attended Cuba's state school system and graduated from the University of Havana, where he majored in accounting and finance. He was not a good student, according to the Miami Herald. He studied in military school known as Los Carmelitos. He would eventually attain the rank of colonel in the Interior Ministry. Most days he wakes up around 9 a.m. For a few hours he reads classified briefings. And he keeps the documents in a leather briefcase. He will discuss them with his grandfather later in the day, sometimes over lunch. He said he grew up in a loving family and that his grandparents helped forge his character. But he said they are first and foremost his compañeros, his comrades, using the communist term that emphasizes equality, solidarity, and common purpose, that the ideals of the revolution were intended to stand for. In public, Rodriguez Castro refers to his grandfather as minister, the role he'd held longest as the head of Cuba's armed forces for almost 50 years. In private, he worries about his grandfather tripping and falling. He's simply abuelo, which translates as grandfather. He said he has a different understanding of how his grandfather and great-grandfather uncle treated the people. When Fidel Castro seized control, he built a country with free universal health care and health education systems. He also imprisoned generations of Cubans, oversaw summary trials, and denied them fundamental human rights, nationalized the economy, and sent hundreds of thousands into exile. He spoke of the Cuban Revolution and his grandparents with a wistful affection, part historical account and part folklore. He speaks of his grandparents the way any doting Cuban grandson might in his idealized version of Cuba. He said, "My grandmother was incredibly sweet. She shaped the role women should have in this country. And her name was Vilma Espín, a socialite whose father was a Bacardi rum executive. She fought alongside Fidel and Raul Castro in the mountains during the revolution, and Espín became an influential member of Cuba's Communist Party. The Crab has children of his own. He has 2 daughters with his first wife and another with his second wife. His third wife, Cuban model Sheila Marinho, gave birth to their son in June. We knew what his name would be, Raul for my grandfather and Alberto for my dad." Rodriguez Castro's hand unconsciously drifted to his throat as he talked about his family. He untucked a gold chain from under his T-shirt. "I don't know if you're a believer," he said, revealing a gold medallion with the initials FCR and RCR embossed on the other side. If it's anything I believe, it's in this Fidel and Raul Castro." Many aspects of the young Castro's lifestyle do not sit easily with the communist leader in waiting. Raul Castro grew up extraordinarily privileged in a country that has endured near constant deprivation. For most of the past 7 decades, he enjoys a life of private jets, luxury yachts, and the freedom to travel, something most ordinary Cubans rarely get to do, even if he's subject to the Cold War era embargo. He earned a reputation as a party boy in his 20s and 30s as he traveled the world as an attaché to Raul Castro. He talked with glee about the round-the-clock vibrancy and bustle of New York City, where he attended Yankee games in premium seat close to the field, And he admired Paris for its romantic flair and cuisine. He imagines a Cuba where his countrymen could find foie gras on the shelves. And he values Moscow for its opulence. Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 12:15. More than 20 are dead after a week of dangerous heat across the United States. A heat wave sweeping across much of the eastern and central United States has killed more than 20 people in the past week, as more dangerously hot conditions are expected to soon hit the West. Record high temperatures of East Coast communities canceled festivities and sent hundreds to emergency rooms over the 4th of July weekend. New Jersey officials believe extreme heat has caused 25 deaths since July 2nd, the most of any state so far. Many of the victims were found in homes without air conditioning. A few were outside of their residence, some were in the streets, and some were in parked cars. The age of the victims ranged from the mid-30s to the 80s, and a director stressed the data as being preliminary. In Jackson, Mississippi, a 74-year-old man had been reported missing on June 29th, was found behind a gas station on July 2nd, but died on the way to the hospital. Local officials reported to the National Weather Service the man had been exposed to extreme heat over multiple days with a heat index over 100. Dozens of people at a July 2nd event in Pennsylvania, centered around the world's largest operating steam locomotive, were transported to local hospitals because of a heat illness. In Washington, D.C., where heat indices climbed above 110 degrees during President Donald Trump's July 4th Salute to America event, emergency service personnel reported 96 patient contacts and 40 patient transports from the National Mall. By 10 p.m., before the fireworks erupted in the nation's capital, George Washington University reported 289 patient contacts from the National Mall. It's unclear how many were related to the heat. The East Coast is expected to soon feel some relief from the extreme temperatures as the heat dome shrinks, bringing chances of severe thunderstorms. Storms in the southeastern New England and mid-Atlantic could cause damaging winds. States from Texas to Wisconsin are at least some risk of severe thunderstorms through July 7th. Meanwhile, a new heat dome building between the Rockies and the West Coast is expected to bring sweltering temperatures to much of the West. Texas has the new camp laws a year after Camp Mystic floods. July 3rd, 2025 was a Thursday with the 4th of July celebration already underway that night. But in that background was a severe weather warning from the National Weather Service that would foreshadow the deadly event. As night set and the day turned, a weather system moved into Texas Hill Country, produced torrential rainfall, with celebrations swiftly becoming a tragedy as rivers rose about 25 feet in about 45 minutes, overtaking homes, RVs, and tents and families gathering for fellowship. More than 130 people died during the floods, 28 of whom were from a girls' Christian camp, Camp Mystic. As 25 young girls, 2 camp counselors, and the camp's co-director were swept away in the middle of the night while trying to evacuate to higher ground as the Guadalupe River rose. A year later, communities are still reeling. Kerr County is trying to heal, and Camp Mystic families are seeking justice for their lost loved ones. And state officials have passed new laws to prevent another tragedy while eyeing further regulation. Camp Mystic's future stalled. According to Texas lawmakers, Kerr County bore the heaviest toll with 170 confirmed deaths. The U.S. Geological Gauge at Guadalupe reported the river rose from 10 feet about 3 a.m. and crested at 37 feet at 5:10 a.m. It was also determined that a better river monitoring system and flood warning system were needed to prevent another tragedy at this time, with lawmakers writing the law. Kerr County was among the first to install and begin testing sirens in May of 2026. And a real-time flood warning system is also in the works in the University of Texas at Arlington, after it received a $4 million grant from the governor. To achieve this goal, the UTA has announced in May that it will join forces with the Severe Storm Prediction, Education, and Evacuation from Disaster Center at Rice University to help develop computer modeling system and comprehensive floodplain map library that underpin the operational warning platform. New Texas camp safety laws take effect before the 2026 season. Days after the deadly floods, Governor Greg Abbott called all state lawmakers to Austin for the 30-day special session of the Texas legislature, following the regular session that ended the month before. At the top of Abbott's list for lawmakers is to address was how to prevent such a tragedy again. Lawmakers were not able to pass the bill, so Abbott called for a second special session. And the lawmakers passed three measures. The Youth Camp Alert Mitigation Preparedness and Emergency Response Act requires every licensed Texas youth camp to have a written emergency plan, provide annual staff training and camper orientation, and notify parents when any part of the camp sits in a floodplain. It directs DSHS to set camper-to-council ratios for overnight stays and lets the Attorney General seek civil penalties for up to $1,000 for each violation. Haven's 27 Camp Safety Act bars the DSHS from issuing or renewing a license for any youth camp that operates a campaign within a floodplain with narrow exceptions, while requiring camps to maintain an operable radio capable of receiving real-time National Weather Service alerts. Camps must also install an emergency warning system, including a public address system that operates without an internet connection. Each youth camp must maintain redundant internet connectivity. Senate Bill 3 directs the Texas Water Development Board to identify each flash flood prone area that warrants one or more outstanding warning sirens and requires installation and regular testing. It also establishes a grant to defray the cost installing sirens. Speaker of the House Johnson says birthright citizenship ought to be restricted. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said in a July 5th Fox News interview that Congress should take up a legislative effort to curtail birthright citizenship in the wake of the Supreme Court striking down an executive order from President Donald Trump that sought to redefine who is an American. The Louisiana Republican said on Fox News Sunday that immigration system is being abused by birthright tourism and said that the practice has devalued citizenship. It is a threat to the rule of law and national security. We do need to address it, Johnson said. He did not say what piece of legislation would address the matter, but that Republicans are looking at all angles. If there's a bill that can fix that, we'll advance that immediately, Johnson said. Trump called on Congress to pass legislation in the wake of his loss at the High Court, claiming that no long and unwieldy constitutional amendment is necessary. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts said children born to parents who are unlawfully temporarily in the United States satisfy the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment, which states all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. A majority of justices found that birthright citizenship is constitutionally protected under the 14th Amendment. Amending the Constitution would require support from 2/3 of both chambers of Commerce and ratification by 3/4 of the nation's state legislatures. In a concurring opinion, Justice Brett Kavanaugh said Congress could establish exceptions to birthright citizenship for people born to people in the country illegally. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Representative Brian Babin of Texas, two Trump allies, introduced legislation last year to ban birthright citizenship. The bill acknowledges the right of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment, but narrows the definition of persons who are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And what is birth tourism? Birth tourism is the name authorities give to the practice of parents traveling briefly to the United States to deliver children so that the child obtains United States citizenship. The number of babies born to birth tourists in the United States is highly disputed because the government does not track the figures. Estimates from researchers have varied from as high as 39,000 annually to as low as 2,000 annually. But a group of 140 university professors told the Supreme Court in a written argument that birth tourism accounts for an infinitesimal proportion of children born in the United States. Republicans and Democrats disagree about the importance of acting to curtail birth tourism, with Senator Ted Cruz of Texas calling it a blatant abuse of our immigration laws, while Senator Pete Welch, a Democrat of Vermont, saying it's a pretty marginal issue. In the same interview on July 5th, Johnson said that he will attempt to pass the Save America Act, a Trump-backed election reform bill, through budget reconciliation. We're going to try one more time on a budget reconciliation bill. I think that will be the way to get it through the Senate and finally to the president's desk, Johnson said. The bill and other House business stalled after a group of Republicans led by Representative Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican of Florida, revolted on a procedural motion that led to a chamber recess. I just decided it was best to send everybody home to go celebrate July 4th in their districts. We'll come back, gather everybody together, Johnson said on Fox News. The big urgency is to get Save America passed. The president has that as a top priority, and so do I. The rules in the Senate around budget reconciliation have prevented the bill from being a part of the previous reconciliation bills. Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough ruled that this year that the bill violated rules that prevent extraneous legislation from being included in the budget process under reconciliation. Why the White House report targets Smithsonian leadership. A new White House report accuses leaders of the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History of embracing extreme political activism and using the nation's flagship history museum to advance what the report describes as an ideological agenda. The 162-page report, released on July 4th by the White House Domestic Policy Council, is part of the Trump administration's ongoing review of the Smithsonian. It's the latest move in the Trump administration's broader push to scrutinize Smithsonian exhibits and programming that federal officials view as overly ideological or, quote, woke, unquote. The report argues that museum leaders have moved the institution away from historical scholarship and towards social justice advocacy, saying the museum now presents American history largely through themes of racism, oppression, and inequality. This ideological capture has moved the museum's mission away from straightforward historical education and scholarship toward an extreme political activism that seeks to transform our country, the report states. Much of the report focuses on historian Anthea Hartig, who has led the National Museum of American History since 2019 and is the museum's first female director. The White House cites Hartig's public statements describing history as a prime tool of social justice, connecting scholarship to activism and advocacy, and working to reframe the traditional celebratory narrative of U.S. history. The report argues that the museum has de-emphasized America's founding, noting the absence of major exhibits devoted to the Founding Fathers or key events of the American Revolution as the country marks its 250th anniversary. It also criticizes museum programs and exhibits addressing race, immigration, and gender identity, contending they prioritize advocacy over traditional historical interpretation. For more than 180 years, the Smithsonian has served the American public with nonpartisan and independent scholarship, and we remain committed to doing so, the spokesperson for the Smithsonian said in a statement to USA Today. The release of the report comes after President Donald Trump signed an executive order in March 2025 titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. Trump objected to what he called a concerted effort to downplay American successes and to cast American milestones and the nation's founding principles in a negative light. Then in August of 2025, the Trump administration launched a review of the Smithsonian, which operates 21 museums, the National Zoo, and multiple research centers, beginning with 8 of its most visited and high-profile museums. Federal officials also identified a series of exhibits and programs they said reflected ideological or divisive interpretations of American history. Critics have argued that such efforts by the Trump administration are tantamount to whitewashing the sometimes tragic history of the United States that all Americans deserve to know the full story of. Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and the time is 12:30. And we're on to the money section. Let me turn the page here. Assisted living costs are soaring. Medicare and Medicaid spend more than $12 billion. The federal health programs Medicare and Medicaid spent more than $12 billion on assisted living facilities for older adults and people with disabilities, according to a new federal oversight report. The U.S. Government Accountability Office report offered detailed findings on federal spending in assisted living facilities, which older adults are increasingly choosing for long-term care. Based on the report's findings of lucrative federal spending, Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren and Kirsten Gillibrand called for tougher oversight at those facilities. Warren said the report identified a huge oversight gap. Assisted living facilities receive billions in federal dollars, but there's no federal role in ensuring they're providing high-quality care. She said in an email, residents of these facilities deserve better, and that starts by making sure that assisted living facilities are making good use of taxpayer dollars and are not leaving our seniors out to dry. And what's the difference between a nursing home and an assisted living facility? Assisted living facilities house and provide care to seniors and some people with disabilities. Though people typically live independently of these facilities, they can get help with daily activities such as bathing, eating, and using the restroom. Nursing homes are often staffed by nursing assistants as well as higher skilled positions such as licensed practical nurses or registered nurses. Though Medicaid in many states pays for nursing homes for low-income residents, little was known about how much the federal government spends on assisted living facilities. Medicare spent $8.5 billion on nearly half the 830,000 people at assisted living facilities in 2024. Most of the spending was for hospice care, but residents also received home health services such as nursing and physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Medicare also paid for home visits to assess people for nail care and psychotherapy. The report also identified $3.5 billion in federal Medicaid spending for services provided in assisted living facilities in 2024, and they didn't tally how much states paid to assisted living facilities. Trump seeks more E15 gas sales to lower prices. President Donald Trump is pushing Congress to pass legislation that will allow sales of higher ethanol gasoline as U.S. lawmakers grapple with rising gas prices that have upset many Americans in an election year. In an updated 2026 budget request sent to Congress on June 24th, the White House requested a new law that would codify the permanent year-round sale of E15 gas, which is gasoline blended with 15% ethanol. Doing so, the White House said, would amount to an urgent and needed policy change that would expand consumer choice, support domestic fuel production, and provide additional flexibility in fuel markets. The House of Representatives approved a bill on May 13th that would allow year-round sales of E15 gas. The measure, known as the Nationwide Consumer and Fuel Retailers Choice Act, still needs to be approved by the Senate before it can be sent to Trump for his signature. Supporters of E15 gas, such as the National Corn Growers Association, say the year-round E15 gas saves drivers money on every gallon of gas, and drives the demand for bushels of corn. The consideration of extending sales of E15 gas comes as temporary waivers that the EPA traditionally issues in summer to allow more E15 gas are soon set to expire. It comes also as the average price of gas fell to $3.83 on Thursday, July 2nd, That's down from a national average gas of $4.29 1 month ago, but it's still up from a median price of $2.98 on February 28th. What is E15 gas? Well, E15 gas is gasoline blended with 15% ethanol. Most of finished motor gasoline sold in the United States is E10, and most of the E15 gas is now available in America, sold in the Midwest. The EPA said E15 is offered now at more than 3,000 gas stations nationwide, where the agency said it serves as a more affordable choice. EPA officials noted that when they issued the May 1st waiver, without this action, E15 gas cannot be used by roughly half the country this summer. Environmental groups have criticized the idea of increasing use of ethanol in gas, saying it emits harmful pollutants just like regular gas. And the average price is not tracked as closely as the price of regular gas. The 2023 study by Renewable Fuels so the drivers would save about 25 cents a gallon if they use E15 gas. In the Consumer Reports, the study found that the last time nationwide gas prices near $4 a gallon, E15 gas averaged $3.41 a gallon. Question, can E15 gas damage my car? The EPA said E15 gas can be used in most flexible fuel vehicles and most cars made after 2001. But the agency said E15 gas cannot be used in the following types of motor vehicles: on-highway and non-road motor vehicles, or vehicles with heavy-duty engines, such as school buses, transit buses, and delivery trucks, non-road vehicles, such as boats and snowmobiles, engines and non-road equipment, such as lawnmowers and chainsaws, and model year 2000 and older cars, light-duty trucks, and medium-duty passenger vehicles. Consumer Reports said in a post on its website that agrees with the EPA that E15 gas is safe for most modern cars, but the group says drivers should check your manual to see what type of fuel the manufacturer recommends before they turn to cheaper options. If your car is a 2001 model or older, you'll probably find the recommendation is no more than 10% ethanol, which is the most common blend of regular gas in the U.S. One tank of E15 isn't going to kill your car, but it will affect it over time. America's favorite investment is all about real estate. Gallup runs an annual poll to determine Americans' most popular long-term investment. In nearly 2 decades of polling, Americans have never picked stocks. Financial experts routinely pick the stock market as the best investment choice for long-term gains. And in the 40 years through 2025, Fidelity reports the S&P 500 has delivered an average return of 11.5% a year. And yet when Gallup asked Americans to name the best long-term investment in periodic polls, stocks have never come out on top. In a 2026 poll, when respondents were asked to choose among the 6 best long-term investments, the top answer by a wide margin was real estate. And here's the breakdown. 38% chose real estate, 20% chose stocks or mutual funds, 18% chose gold, savings accounts and CDs were chosen by 12%, bonds 4%, and cryptocurrency 22%. Gallup has asked the same question more or less every year since 2007, and real estate has led the survey every year since 2013. Before 2013, however, investors gave very different answers. In 2008, the Great Recession descended, and Americans picked the humble savings account as their favorite long-term investment. And neither stocks nor homes looked like a very safe investment in 2008. The S&P 500 lost nearly 40% of its value that year as the housing market collapsed. During the Great Recession, nothing was performing well, and that's why savings account won. In 2011, Gallup added gold to the survey as an investment choice. And gold won the best investment contest in that year and the next. Investors have a love-hate relationship with stocks. Investment experts say the survey results prove more than anything that Americans don't entirely trust the stock market. Investors had a very poor experience with stocks in 2007 to 2009. It's difficult to like stocks at times. Most recently, The Gallup survey illustrates Americans' love for homes. Compared with mercurial stocks, real estate feels like a stable investment. Prices dropped dramatically in the Great Recession, but that dip was an anomaly. Over the past several decades, home prices have trended mostly higher. Real estate has historically gone up almost every year. There are very few times in history when real estate had gone backwards. When it comes to long-term investments, however, safer doesn't always mean better. What is the best long-term investment? If there's a corrected answer to the poll, it's stocks. Over the past 30 years, stock prices have risen about 4 times the pace of home prices, according to a Motley Fool analysis. The best long-term investment, without question, is the stock market, said the editor-in-chief of Investopedia. Here's another way to compare stocks and real estate as investments. From 1992 to 2024, the S&P yielded an average return of 10.4% a year. In the same years, home prices grew about 5.5% annually. It surprised me that stocks aren't a more consistent favorite. Because based on the data, stocks beat all these other asset classes hands down. And why do Americans love real estate as investment? Why then have Americans consistently picked real estate as the best investment in the Gallup poll? Here's one reason. Americans are more likely to own homes than stocks. Roughly 2/3 of American households own their primary residence, according to a Federal Survey of Consumer Finances. By contrast, only 21% of households own directly held stocks with shares in their own name. Real estate is the investment that the most survey respondents understand. For many Americans, a home functions somewhat like a savings account. When you buy a home with a mortgage, you enter a years-long cycle of building equity with your mortgage payments and the gradual appreciation of the home's value. Home ownership has helped millions of Americans achieve the American dream. A home feels like a safe investment. So do savings accounts, CDs, and gold, the asset that topped the Gallup poll at times in the Great Recession era. Older generations traditionally feel like gold and real estate are better investments than the stock market because they lived through stock market crashes and watched their wealth evaporate. And how does gold rate as a long-term investment? Lately, gold has looked like a great investment. At one point in early 2026, the price of gold was up roughly 75% over 1 year and 200% over 5 years, and gold was outperforming stocks. But gold has shed value since, and the recent run-up is atypical. Adjusting for inflation, gold was worth about as much in late 2024 as it was in early 1980. Is gold the best long-term investment? Probably not, investment experts say. A little bit of gold can actually help diversify, so it's worth looking at. But I think investors should avoid those either-or scenarios. Are savings account and CDs a good long-term investment? Investment experts generally recommend savings account and CDs only for investments who have very little risk tolerance, and those are looking for ways to hedge against the volatility of stocks. Many of the best high-yield savings accounts and CDs carry interest rates around 4%. That means your money will just about keep pace with today's annual inflation rate of 4.2%. Well, you're listening to American Reading of Today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:43. And we go now to Ask Johnny, the Human Relations columnist Johnny C. Taylor, who tackles your workplace questions each week for USA Today. He's the president and CEO of SHRM, the world's largest trade association of human resources professionals. And the question he has today is a 4-day work week better for all involved? Somebody named River has asked a question. My company is considering moving to a 4-day work week. Well, the idea is popular with employees and seemed like it could boost productivity and retention. I'm concerned about whether it's truly sustainable in the long term. How should organizations evaluate whether a 4-day work week will work for their specific business model without harming performance, customer service, or employee burnout? And Johnny Taylor answers, a 4-day work week sounds appealing in theory, but whether it works in practice depends entirely on the business. There's no universal model. What works for one company may create operational strain for another, and leaders need to be honest about that from the start. The first question organizations should ask is not, is the 4-day work week popular? The question is, what business problem are we trying to solve? Is the goal improved productivity, better retention, a recruitment advantage, reduced burnout, operational efficiency? And the second question is just as important. Do we have the data to prove a 4-day work week will solve this problem? Flexibility should be treated as a business strategy, not simply a workplace trend. Organizations also need clarity around what 4-day work week actually means. Are employees working 4 10-hour days, or is the organization reducing total weekly hours? Those are fundamentally different models with very different operational, financial, and workforce implications. And let me be clear, compressing the work into fewer days without changing expectations, workflows, or staffing models can actually increase burnout rather than reduce it. If employees are expected to produce the same output in less time without better systems in place, the pressure simply intensifies. That's why operational efficiency matters so much in these conversations. Organizations that successfully implement flexible work models are often the ones willing to rethink how work gets done. They reduce unnecessary meetings, streamline approvals, automate repetitive tasks, and eliminate low-value work that consumes employee time without improving outcomes. Customer expectations also have to remain front and center. Employees may appreciate the flexibility, but if customers experience slower service, inconsistent support, or reduced responsiveness, the model becomes difficult to sustain. Any workplace strategy ultimately has to support both the workforce and the business itself. And candidly, we still don't have enough long-term data to declare the 4-day work week universally successful or unsuccessful. And that's why these decisions should be data-driven, not emotionally driven. Organizations considering a pilot should establish measurable outcomes up front and track productivity, engagement, turnover, customer satisfaction, operational performance, and financial impact over time. Most importantly, organizations need to stay flexible themselves. A 4-day work week is not set it and forget it policy. Workforce needs, customer expectations, and business conditions evolve, and leaders have to be willing to adjust if the model stops delivering results. At the end of the day, the goal is balance. The strongest workplace models are the ones that support employee well-being while also strengthening performance, service, and organizational resilience. Organizations that approach this thoughtfully measure outcomes carefully and remain willing to adapt, then they will be in the best position to determine whether a 4-day work week truly works for their business long term. Boba Fett goes to pieces in a Star Wars Lego set. Lego is expanding its lineup of Star Wars collectibles with a new model inspired by one of the franchise's most iconic bounty hunters. The company has revealed the Lego Star Wars Boba Fett, a 1,544-piece display model based on the character's appearance in Star Wars The Return of the Jedi, designed for builders 18 years and older. The set stands more than 16 inches tall and is priced at, get this, $169.99. Verified IG account, The Brick Post, a page for the Lego enthusiasts, has shared images of what the set will look like. Unfortunately, we don't have a picture here for it. The figure features Boba Fett's signature Mandalorian armor, a swiveling helmet rangefinder, a jetpack, a blaster, and a fabric cape. Builders can adjust the head, arms, and hands to create different poses, while the completed model stands on a base inspired by the sands of Tatooine. The set also includes a matching Boba Fett minifigure displayed alongside an information plaque. The collectible is set to be released on August 1st and joins LEGO's growing catalog of display sets aimed at adult fans of the Star Wars franchise. The new Boba Fett model reflects LEGO's continued investment in products designed specifically for adult builders, a category that has become one of the company's fastest growing segments in recent years. More than 100 LEGO sets are now marketed to adults, spanning pop culture franchises, architecture, botanicals, vehicles, and other collectibles. According to LEGO, the sets are intended to provide a creative, hands-on experience while celebrating fans' favorite movies, TV shows, and hobbies. The Boba Fett figure also supports LEGO's Build Together mode in the LEGO Builder app, allowing friends and family to collaborate on the build using multiple devices. Adult enthusiasm for LEGO has been fueled in part by nostalgia, says James Zahn, editor-in-chief of the Toy Book, who told USA Today many builders are reconnecting with a brand they loved growing up. LEGO's expansion into licensed franchises such as Star Wars, Harry Potter, Marvel, and DC has helped transform the company into a powerhouse among collectors by offering detailed, display-worthy sets tied to the beloved entertainment properties, he noted. LEGO says many adults also turn to building as a way to relax, unplug, and express their creativity. Fans interviewed by USA Today have described assembling the intricate models as a mindful hobby that helps them disconnect from the demands of everyday life while creating collectibles that they proudly display in their homes. We're going back now to the front section. Right when I turn the page. And it's all about school buses, how school buses offer a route to power relief. In California, batteries ease the strain on the grid. Schools are out for the summer, but batteries in more than 200 electric school buses are helping some people in the United States find relief when temperatures soar. From California to North Carolina, yellow electric school buses are sending power back to the grid, easing some strain when demand spikes during heat waves. Hundreds more are expected to come online. The stored energy in school buses and other electric vehicles is dwarfed by that of power plants. But efforts to use their batteries to return power to electrical systems known as vehicle-to-grid, also called V2G, show how EVs could fortify strained power grids. Fully deployed V2G projects include about 230 of the nation's roughly 6,700 electric school buses now have the capacity to supply about 8 megawatt hours of power at a given time, according to the World Resources Institute's Electric School Bus Initiative. By contrast, PJM, the largest U.S. regional grid, will need more than 160,000 megawatts of power this week to meet peak demand for 67 million people. Much of the United States this week has been sweltering under record-breaking temperatures. It's very early days. School buses will be critically important backbone of the V2G capacity, says Steve Latendra, Senior Advisor to the Vehicle Grid Integration Council Trade Association. Electric school buses have large batteries, some exceeding 200 kilowatt hours. They can charge when the demand is low and then send power back to the utility when the demand is high. They're often idle in the summer when electricity demand surges. At least 31 utilities in 21 states are involved in V2G school bus projects. The number of electric school buses on the road should more than double to about 14,000 or 3% of the total fleet in the coming years, WRI data showed, and many of those will be V2G enabled. Still, capacity from the V2G electric school bus projects needs to grow exponentially to make a meaningful difference. Consulting firm ICF forecasts 445,000 megawatts of U.S. grid capacity additions through 2030, partly driven by the data center boom. V2G projects face hurdles including upfront costs and a lack of universal V2G technology. Regulatory frameworks and standards are years away. Electric vehicle owners and operators face concerns that repeated charging and discharging of a battery could accelerate the battery degradation, and that use of V2G could avoid a battery warranty. Electric buses do not spew tailpipe pollution, but critics of vehicle electrification and government public investment in alternative projects argue they could tax the grid. To combat that, many schools are beginning to lean on solar energy for charging their buses. California leads the United States in developing and adopting V2G school bus technology. Its largest project is at the Oakland Unified School District, where Pacific Gas and Electric and transit provider ZUM operate a fleet of 74 buses estimated to generate 2.1 gigawatt hours of electricity annually. A separate ZUM project with the San Francisco Unified School District is set to launch next month, and it is expected to surpass the Oakland project with a starting fleet of 104 buses, returning about 3 gigawatt hours of energy annually during peak hours. The fleet will more than double to 238 electric buses in 2027-28. California mandates that electric school buses funded through the state programs be equipped for vehicle-to-grid capability, and is funding some V2G infrastructure programs and has the state's largest utilities, PG&E and Southern California Edison, as partners. In Connecticut, the Branford Public School Districts will have 46 V2G electric buses in August. In North Carolina, Cherokee Boys Club will operate 20 electric school buses for tribally connected Cherokee Central Schools. And it has a V2G test program funded by Duke Energy. Cherokee Boys Club service manager Donnie Ohl is working on the project to use buses as generators for school buildings that double as emergency shelters. Well, you've been listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Tuesday, July 7th, 2026 on the Niagara Frontier. We'll return for more readings after this short break, and your reading so far has been Alan Blackburn.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
Hi, this is Jeff Shapiro, and for the next hour, we'll continue with a reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. This is on Tuesday, July 7th. So, the sports section. Haaland is red hot as Norway gives boot to Brazil. This is from East Rutherford, New Jersey. The World Cup Golden Boot race is shaping up to be an all-timer, and so is this tournament performance from Erling Haaland. Haaland scored another brace, 2 goals, on July 5th, as Norway defeated Brazil 2-1 in the World Cup round of 16 to advance to the quarterfinals for the first time in the nation's history. And it all happened on the back of their 6'5" goal machine, who admitted just a couple of goals ago that he is really good at scoring goals. I peaked a couple of times during this tournament, Haaland said after the match, but this was a new peak. Haaland was once again even with Argentina's Lionel Messi and Kylian Mbappe of France in the Golden Boot race going into July 6th. They all had 7 goals, with Messi having played one less match than both Mbappe and Haaland. I couldn't quite believe it, Haaland said of the victory. I didn't dream of this ever in my life. I dreamt of playing in the World Cup with Norway and taking them to the World Cup, but I never expected to win against Brazil. Let's be honest to say that. I thought it was not possible to do some things, but I guess I'm wrong. It's quite special. It's unreal. I don't have words. It's difficult to put into words what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, because it's unreal. I need to pinch myself sometimes in the arm because it's big. Haaland banged home his 6th goal of the tournament Sunday with a wonderful header in the 79th minute to give his team a 1-0 advantage. He followed up with a left-footed bullet to the lower right corner for an insurance goal in the 90th minute to effectively punch Norway's ticket to the next round. Neymar scored a penalty in the dying moments for Brazil that served as a consolation in the 2-1 loss. Andreas Schederup, a second-half sub, provided the ball into the box that Haaland headed into the back of the net for the first score. Schederup also teed up Haaland's second goal, which came from the edge of the penalty area. For Erling, I'm lost for words. We're all lost for words, Schederup said after the match. We're all just happy that he's Norwegian and that he's playing for us. The things he does every game to be able to score, it doesn't matter. You can just cross the ball or pass it into him blindly and he will score. We're so lucky to have him and we appreciate him very much. Hopefully, he will score some more goals in the next games. We're looking forward to that. After his second goal, Haaland hardly reacted other than lifting his shirt and offering a menacing look. It was reminiscent of his earlier brace at MetLife Stadium against Senegal, which also featured a pair of second-half goals. Haaland also sent Norway to the round of 16 with a game winner in the 86th minute against Ivory Coast on July 1st. Against Brazil, Norway had a simple strategy: control the ball as much as possible for as long as possible. Feed the big man in the middle and hope something good eventually happened. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Haaland had Brazil sweating throughout the second half by attacking the back post twice prior to that period's hydration break. His goals that eventually ripped the twine were yet another example of his clutch factor. Haaland's goal scoring over the last 3 weeks on limited touches has been a lesson in athletic efficiency. Yet he also netted his previous 5 goals with his patented power. Entering the match, he was scoring once every 14 touches. On Sunday, the Manchester City striker had 30 touches and 2 goals. Norway coach Ståle Solbakken has been adamant all tournament that his striker is the best goal scorer in the world. He called Haaland a match winner and thought overall that he played a good game by being active and remaining physical. It was difficult for the center backs from Brazil to keep it under control, Solbakken said. Haaland's physicality was on full display in the first half when Nyland went long to him from the opposite box. Haaland bulldozed his way to the ball and laid it off for Norway captain Martin Odegaard, who almost beat Brazilian keeper Alisson Becker. But Becker blocked enough of it to have the ball rest peacefully just behind him, and he corralled it with nobody near him to keep his sheet clean until Haaland ruined that and Brazil's World Cup chances. As Norway celebrated its victory with the loyal supporters behind the goal on the east side of the stadium, the festivities turned to the viral Vikings Row. Since the team defeated Senegal on June 23rd, it's become a joint celebration between the team on the field and the fans in the stands. Odegaard, as the captain, is responsible for the two drum beats that precede the Universal Row. This time, Odegaard bestowed that honor to another member of the red, white, and blue. Haaland enticed the crowd into a hush before his first two strikes of the bass drum. He then delivered a dramatic pause, followed by another two beats, and then another two, and so on, until the outnumbered Norwegians, compared to the Brazilian supporters in the crowd, but had already departed in disappointment, produced a noise that sounded like it could reach the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. I've said it before, but we're changing the nation, Haaland said. I think the way we played today shows that Norway is a fantastic football team and that we're actually one of the better teams in Europe and the world. What we have been doing is amazing. It took 28 years. It took some time. I'm 25 years old, so you can't really blame me for that. You can blame me for coming here. But yeah, it's unbelievable. I'm proud. I'm proud of my country, and I'm proud of everyone. When the chant ended, Haaland triumphantly flung the mallet into the MetLife grass, because much like his bashing of a drum, Erling Haaland does his best work in pairs. Radar watch. Jacob Misiorowski lights up a speed gun but may need rain god's help for All-Star game availability. Jacob Misiorowski is the only pitcher to throw 103 miles per hour this year. He's done it 63 times, going 9-4 with 156 strikeouts in 104 innings. You want to see a 24-year-old kid throw the fastest pitch in baseball history at the All-Star game, pumping his 105-mile-per-hour heaters, maybe even hitting 106? You want to see a gangly 6'7" kid embarrass the greatest hitters in the world, perhaps striking out the side within an immaculate inning? You want to see the greatest show on earth with a performance that could be remembered for ages? Well, you've got a little assignment. Milwaukee Brewers sensation Jacob Misiorowski could sure use your helping hand. Pray for rain. Just for one measly day, how about July 7th in St. Louis? The Brewers are scheduled to play a doubleheader against the St. Louis Cardinals that day, with the first game at 1:15 p.m. Central Time and the next at 6:45 p.m. Misiorowski is scheduled to pitch the first game when the weather is supposed to be just fine. But the last time he checked, there could be thunder showers in the forecast at night. I need it to rain all day, tells USA Today Sports. Obviously, with weather in the Midwest, you never know. And if it doesn't rain that day, well, there's always July 12th in Pittsburgh, the final day before the All-Star break, with the early weather forecast showing a 40% chance of rain. That would work too, Misiorowski said, breaking into an expansive grin. But if there are no rainouts and Misiorowski makes his scheduled starts in St. Louis and in Pittsburgh, you won't be seeing him pitching in the All-Star game on July 14th at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. He'll be merely a spectator, just like me and you, only with a better seat. Starting pitchers who pitch on the final day before the All-Star game are ineligible to pitch in the Midsummer Classic. I would love to pitch in the game, Misiorowski says, especially if I somehow got the start. But do I think that's the best for the team? No. But selfishly, sure, I want to throw. Misiorowski looked away and softly said, "Oh well." The TV folks can scream to the heavens. Major League Baseball officials can be irritated. And baseball fans can throw a temper tantrum. But Misiorowski is too young, too polite, too shy, and too much of a team player to ever complain. You can hate it, but even with the Brewers having a 6-game lead over the Chicago Cubs in the National League Central going into July 6th, just one more start by Misiorowski could be the difference between winning the division and getting a first-round bye, or being subjected to a wild card round, or even sitting home in October. We want to do what's best for the kid first, then what's best for baseball, and what's best for the Milwaukee Brewers, manager Pat Murphy said. I want to do what's right by the kid first and foremost. That's our job. He's always represented our organization well. No Major League Baseball official or TV executive has reached out to the Brewers to persuade them into making Mazeroski available for the game. But of course, there's plenty of time for those phone calls to be made and favors to be asked. I'd love for him to pitch in the game, but right now we're just making sure he's ready for his next start, Murphy said. We'll take it one day at a time after that and see what's best for him. Truly, there's no way to rush this thing. I'd love for him to pitch in the game, but sorry, I'm not going to think about it right now. It might be a different dilemma if Los Angeles Dodgers manager Dave Roberts was planning to start Mazeroski in the All-Star game, but the current plan is for Philadelphia Phillies ace Christopher Sanchez, who's 10-3 with a 2.0 ERA, to have the honor in front of his hometown fans. I think he deserves it, Mazeroski said, especially with the game being in Philly. It'd be cool for him to start in front of his home fans. No offense to Sanchez, who produced the longest consecutive scoreless streak by a left-hander in history this year at 50 2/3 innings. But The Miz is the greatest show on earth. Mazeroski is 9-4 with an MLB best 1.47 ERA, leading the major leagues with 156 strikeouts in 104 innings, a spectacular 13.5 strikeouts per 9-inning rate, while yielding 4.7 hits per 9 innings. He's given up just 5 earned runs while striking out 105 batters in his last 11 games, a feat that no pitcher has accomplished in baseball history. Honestly, it's mind-bending how powerful his fastball is, says Arizona Diamondbacks veteran starter Zach Gallen. It's like each day he throws is setting a new velocity record in throwing strikes. I think everyone in the game tries to watch when he takes the mound. His starts have become must-see TV. Mazeroski, who hit 105.5 miles per hour in his last start when he actually slipped on the mound, is the only pitcher to throw 103 miles per hour this year, and he's done it 63 times. Why? Of the 270 fastest pitches thrown in baseball this year, The Miz is the author of all of them. His performances have been breathtaking, and if he takes the mound, he would have the potential of resurrecting memories of Pedro Martinez when he struck out a record 4 consecutive batters and 5 out of 6 in the 1999 All-Star Game and walked off with the MVP award. Now, unless rain pours or there's a change of heart, he'll just be taking in the sights. Only this time he'll be chilling with his fellow All-Stars, knowing that he belongs in his place among the game's greatest stars. No one's going to be bashing him like a year ago after several players, most notably Phillies shortstop Trey Turner and outfielder Nick Castellanos, called it a joke that Mazeroski was chosen after making only 5 starts. The Phillies were livid that Sanchez was not pitching in the game, but the truth is that he rejected the invitation, along with several other veterans. So, when MLB finally extended an invitation to Mazeroski, he gladly accepted. Mazeroski got his dose of sweet revenge when he faced the Phillies last month and pitched one of the greatest regular season games in history, a one-hit shutout, striking out a career-high 15 batters and throwing 58 of his 95 pitches at 100 miles per hour or faster. I think the Phillies were more mad at MLB than me last year, Mazeroski said, but now, at least I can say, see, there wasn't a mistake. While many members of the trash talking about Mazeroski's selection, he vividly recalls who walked into the clubhouse before the game, stopped in front of his locker, extended his right hand, and warmly congratulated him for making the All-Star game. Phillies slugger Kyle Schwarber, the Phillies' lone All-Star representative. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radioing Service. That was awesome, Mazeroski said. I mean, there was a guy that I've looked up to, my whole life. I've watched him since he was with the Cubs, so it's cool to have a guy like that come up and say congrats and acknowledge all your success. Now, Misiorowski, the quiet kid from Green Valley, Missouri, who grew up a diehard Kansas City Royals fan, idolizing the likes of Alex Gordon, Eric Hosmer, and Mike Moustakas from their 215 World Series championship team, and religiously watching Cardinals great Adam Wainwright, can be the one to go around and congratulate the 26 first-time All-Stars. He can even relate his first big league experience facing the Cardinals in his major league debut and nearly passing out at the sight of Nolan Arenado, the 10-time Gold Glove winner and 8-time All-Star, walking to the plate. I remember getting 2 quick outs, Misiorowski says, but when he came into the box, I was like, holy, I really made it. Certainly, he'll be much more comfortable in his All-Star surroundings this time, and who knows, he might work up the courage to speak to a few legends. Looking back on it now, I wish I had talked to Clayton Kershaw a little bit more, Misiorowski said. It was his last All-Star game, and I wish I had picked his brain a little bit more. You know, nothing too crazy. Well, considering Misiorowski is lighting up the radar gun at a historic rate and has supplanted Paul Skeens in the National League as the pitcher everyone wants to see, receiving the most votes by his peer than any National League pitcher, he could be the one drawing an audience. Everyone wants to know how he's able to throw pitches with that much velocity, throwing them for strikes and still stay healthy. He eclipsed the 100-inning mark in his last start and says he still feels fresh at 104 innings, believing there's no reason he can't blow past his career high of 129 in the third innings last season and still be strong. I think he's in uncharted territory for sure, Gallen said. For a starter to throw that hard and be the guinea pig as a starter that throws that hard, how long in his career? I hope he's healthy for 15 years and we're talking about how he can throw 102 miles per hour every night and be fine. Misiorowski has heard the concerns ever since he was throwing 99 miles per hour at Crowder Junior College in Neosho, Missouri. Every time he starts lighting up the radar gun with his historic readings, he's asked how long he could possibly sustain the velocity without damaging an elbow ligament. Well, if the Miz isn't worried, why should you? I get it, Misiorowski said. I get people's concerns. Like obviously you look across and you see Tariq Skubal, another hard thrower, coming back from surgery. So I see the concerns. But at the same time, that's just how I throw. I've taught myself how to throw hard, how to recover. I think it's kind of beating a dead horse. It gets to a point where I think I have it pretty much under control of what I need to do week in and week out to get my body ready for the next start. I really don't worry about it. It's no different than the Cy Young race. He knows people already are talking about it. He was even caught in a social media hotbed of controversy that accused Milwaukee's official scorer of giving an error to first baseman Jake Bauers instead of an infield hit to Cincinnati Reds left fielder J.J. Bleday. It led to 4 unearned runs instead of 5 earned runs, keeping his ERA at 1.47 instead of 1.82. It's not as if Misiorowski had anything to do with the scoring decision, but conspiracy theories abound. The Cy Young would obviously be really cool, he said, but that's not something I think about. We still have got 70-something games to play. Now, if we come down to the wire and we're 2 starts away from it, maybe then I'll start thinking about it. But right now, I'm thinking about St. Louis and then possibly Pittsburgh. That's my focus. And for at least a week being an amateur meteorologist, too. The updated forecast, July 6th, there's a 5 to 20% chance of rain in St. Louis in the afternoon Tuesday and 15 to 20% at night. Rain is in the forecast all next weekend in Pittsburgh, including 24% the final game of the first half. Growing up there, Misiorowski says, I can tell you that weather can change overnight in the Midwest. You just never know what you're going to get. But if the baseball gods are watching, a torrential downpour would sure feel good right about now this week, or maybe just a change of heart. England survives craziness to oust Mexico. England lasted Mexico 3-2 in a chaotic World Cup round of 16 match on July 5th in what was essentially a home match for El Tri at Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. Jude Bellingham had 2 goals in 2 minutes in the first half to put the Three Lions up early. Julian Quinones, who is Mexico's leading scorer in this tournament, put El Tri on the board and tied Chicharito and Luis El Matador Hernandez with 4 goals in the World Cup. Each team converted a penalty kick, and there was a scuffle about midway through the match. Jarell Quansah was handed a red card in the second half, and England was down to 10 men from then on. This is redemption for England, which was knocked out of the 1986 World Cup in the quarterfinals after Diego Maradon's hand of God goal. The venue of the match, Estadio Azteca. This was England's first match back at the historic venue since that game 40 years ago. The Three Lions will face Norway in the quarterfinals on July 11th. The win was an instant classic with many unforgettable moments. It's possible, however, that you missed the match or just want to look back, so we've listed the craziest moments from a very crazy match. Storms delayed the start of the game again. Well, before the action, the fans in Mexico City were treated to the work of the stadium DJ once again. During a 1-hour weather delay, the DJ played some of the anthems that had become the backdrop to El Tri's World Cup run, but interspersing English classics as well. The English songs, though, were booed as fans waited to cheer their teams warming up on the field and the action getting started. Fans and players belled out the loudest Mexico national anthem of the tournament. I mean, come on. Jude Bellingham scores. Then he scores again. Mexico hadn't conceded in this World Cup, but it sort of showed. After Jude Bellingham's opener, the Real Madrid man was right back in the box as England took advantage of a turnover in midfield to start a second attack. Bellingham got on the end of a pass from Harry Kane for what seemed to be the dagger, though there were more twists in this game. Julian Quinones brings one back to tie Chicharito El Matador. Indeed, just as it seemed like England may win the match comfortably despite a difficult stage, Julian Quinones put himself more deeply in the Mexico record books. Quinones swung his leg to put a bouncing ball in the box into the net for his 4th goal of the tournament. That matches Javier Chicharito Hernandez and Luis El Matador Hernandez for the most career World Cup goals for Mexico. England breathed sighs of relief at a halftime whistle. Rather than the Three Lions cruising into the locker room as they hoped for, they were the ones sweating as Mexico continued to find scoring opportunities. When the halftime whistle blew, you could practically see the relief on the faces of the visiting English. Mexico got a big break when Jarell Quansah left his boot in on Jesus Gallardo, putting his studs into the El Tri defender's calf. After the VAR, the video assistant referee, sent the referee to the monitor, England went down to 10. Except El Tri couldn't take advantage, as England committed more deeply to trying to hit Mexico over the top. Goalkeeper Tala Rango came for a ball that he couldn't get to and took out Anthony Gordon. Kane stepped to the spot and converted, and England led 3-1 in the 60th minute. Kane would be a factor 9 minutes later, becoming the first player ever to both score and to be called for a penalty in the World Cup, as his attempted clearance of a ball Raul Jimenez was trying to control in the box instead ended in him booting Jimenez's leg. Once again, the referee was called to the monitor, and Estadio Azteca started to hope again. Jimenez has a nearly spotless penalty record, and he was never going to miss it in this moment. He did his trademark hop and beat Jordan Pickford, setting up a frantic finish as Mexico looked to find another after his 69th minute goal to make it 3-2. As Mexico tried to find an equalizer, Raul went for the spectacular with an attempted overhead kick that, had it been able to get through the sea of England defenders in the box, would have been tremendous. He scored them before at the Azteca, but this time it was perhaps best to try something less audacious. As 11 minutes of stoppage time ticked on, Mexico ended up playing 10 versus 10, with forward Santa Jimenez suffering an ankle injury but dragging himself off the field so all try could play on. That led to some surreal scenes as Mexico took a corner while Jimenez, clearly in actual pain, rid the round just off the field. Finally, the medical staff was able to attend to him, with Aguirre noting that the game that Jimenez had to go to the hospital for studies. Already in the referee's book, despite not coming onto the pitch, Jordan Henderson might also have suffered a serious wrist injury without playing in the game. After singing Wonderwall and celebrating with the England fans, Henderson tried to go back over the advertising boards but slipped and stayed on the ground. The England forward can't have sung Wonderwall very loudly because you could hardly hear him speak in the post-match flash interview. Kane's voice strained and squeaked as he tried to get out praise for the traveling supporters. We're speechless as well after that one. What a game. What a World Cup. Chris Gotterup rallies for a third 2026 win. Chris Gotterup was brought to tears on the driving range at TPC Deer Run in Silvis, Illinois, when he got word he had won the John Deere Classic. It's not because he's a stranger to winning. It was his third PGA Tour victory in the last 7 months. No, this one, July 5th, spurred extra emotion for the 26-year-old from New Jersey because it was a family affair. His usual caddy, Brady Stockton, is home with a newborn, so Gotterup's little brother, Patrick, was called up to the big leagues to carry his kin's bag. It's such a cool moment, Gotterup said July 5th. Obviously, Brady, who caddies for me normally, had a kid last week, and we kind of planned this out a couple of months ago. Patrick and I were just planning on having a fun week and obviously try to come win, but to have it actually happen is cool and just a special moment that we'll never forget. Gotterup was virtually flawless, firing a bogey-free 9-under 62 in the final round to erase the 5-shot deficit that he faced at the start of the day. He posted 20 under 264 in total to win by 1 shot over Max Homa, who finished solo second, and by 2 over Lee Hodges, Lucas Glover, and Ben Coles, who held the lead for much of the day before a disastrous final hole. I really felt like I grounded it out this week, he said. Today it kind of all came together, but for the first 3 days I didn't have my best stuff. I talked about it earlier in the week, that even my not-so-good stuff had gotten a lot better, which is great. Then, obviously, to come out today and to shoot 9 under was awesome. Definitely not what I had in the cards, but I'll take those cards dealt to me for sure. A year ago this week, Gotterup was ranked number 165 in the world and had only 1 PGA Tour win to his name. Now he is a 5-time winner and will certainly move up from his current standing at number 14 in the official world golf ranking. Gotterup shocked the world when he outdueled Rory McIlroy to win the 2025 Genesis Scottish Open, a title he'll defend at the Renaissance Club this coming week. Then he established himself as one of the tour's premier players, with a win at the season-opening Sony Open in Hawaii, and another 3 weeks later at the WM Phoenix Open. And with his victory at the John Deere Classic, it's safe to say he's not the plucky underdog he was exactly 1 year ago. He's not even just a middling tour player who contends from time to time. He's a bona fide star. We're all crazy golfers. The bads feel really bad even though they're not that bad, and the goods feel like you're unbeatable. Today, I obviously had a really good day, Gotterup said. This whole year's been really good. If you look at it in the big picture, I obviously got off to a great start and was grinding it out in the middle of the year, but that's not unexpected. Hopefully, this kickstarts some other great stuff. I'd be lying if I said this year wasn't a massive success. On Sunday, Gotterup rolled in a 10-foot birdie putt at the first hole, and from there he was off to the races, making 3 birdies on numbers 3 through 5, and adding another at the 224-yard par 3 7th, where he stuck his tee shot to 12 feet. After carding a 5 under 30 on the front 9, Gotterup officially put the field on notice when he birdied the 10th to get to 17 under and into a tie for second, but he was still 3 shots behind Coles. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. 2 more excellent approach shots led to 2 more birdies for Gotterup at numbers 13 and 14, but his hopes of winning hung in the balance on the 15th when he drove the ball into the right rough and had to hit a punch shot to avoid a tree, which caroomed over the green. His third shot was the tricky one, a 20-yard pitch from the long rough to a green sloping away from him, and he couldn't afford to make a bogey. Gotterup executed to perfection, throwing his ball high in the air and checking it up less than 3 feet from the flag for a tap-in par. Gotterup's nerves were tested again at the par 5 17th, which played as the second easiest hole on the course this week, yielding 19 eagles and more than 200 birdies. Gotterup went for the green with his second shot from the first cut of rough and missed right, his ball finding the collection area below the flag, leaving it difficult up and down. He found the green with his third, but the ball traveled farther than he wanted, leaving him just 15 feet for a crucial birdie. The putt swung from right to left and rolled in the center of the cup, giving him the solo lead at 20 under. Coles tied the lead with a birdie at the par 3 16th, but after a par on 17, disaster struck. The 36-year-old from Dallas hit a perfect drive on the 18th, leaving him with just 162 yards from the middle of the fairway. Then, his hopes of nabbing his first PGA Tour win were dashed as he hooked his second shot into the water to the left side of the green. I was kind of a little in between clubs, Cole said. I hit an 8-iron and thought 9 was going to be too short and thought if I hit a full 8, it could have a chance of going over. So I was just trying to hit kind of a 3/4 punch shot. Yeah, just tugged it a little and obviously ended up in the water. After taking a drop, Coles went on to 3-putt for double bogey, falling back into a tie for third at 18 under. This marked Coles' 9th straight week of competitive golf between the PGA Tour, Korn Ferry Tour, and the U.S. Open, for which he had to make it through final qualifying. That 9-event stretch included a win at the KFT's BMW Charity Pro-Am last month. He'll play a 10th consecutive tournament at the PGA Tour's ISCO Championship next week. I'm proud of the way I played, Cole said. I played awesome all week. You know, obviously sucks to just have that happen on the last hole, but hey, I learned a lot about myself. Me and my caddy are doing such a good job, and it's only going to make me better going forward. Gotterup was on the driving range preparing for extra holes when he was informed that Coles had missed his par attempt at the 18th. After nearly an hour of waiting, he could now relax. Obviously, to not have to go into a playoff is nice, but I was ready to go for a playoff if need be, Gotterup said. Coles' double bogey on the 72nd hole not only secured the victory for Gotterup, but it also gave Homa his best finish in more than 3 years. Homa made 8 birdies en route to a 7 under 64 in the final round, but he missed a birdie look from the fringe on number 18 to come up one shy of forcing a playoff. I don't think you would tip your cap to Gotterup. I had a good chance to catch him. He just played better. Homa said he's a phenomenal golfer. I obviously tip my cap in reality, but that's not exactly how I felt out there. He's obviously a phenomenal golfer. I got to play with him yesterday. He's like the nicest dude, too. Very happy with the way he played. I had my chances. I just needed to be a little sharper. Harrington teaches a thing or two in the Senior Open win. Padraig Harrington's numbers just skyrocketed, both on the web and in the wallet. The 50-year-old Irishman successfully defended his U.S. Senior Open title on July 5th at Scioto Country Club, an impressive feat that earned him $800,000 from the $4 million purse that undoubtedly added more followers to the approximately 204,000 YouTube subscribers who consider his online golf instruction videos must-see viewing. So enamored with his vids are the tinkering golf swing junkies that they cannot help but tell Harrington how much they enjoy them, even during the heat of competition. "Hey, Patty, thanks for the YouTube tips," one fan yelled at Harrington, who walked the fifth fairway on the way to a 466 that blew away his closest challengers. Harrington began the final round 8 under, one shot behind Stuart Sink and one shot ahead of George McNeil. By the time he reached the third hole, he was 3 shots clear of Sink and 4 clear of McNeil. From there, he coasted to his third U.S. Senior Open title. Sink finished second at 8 under, and McNeil was third at 6 under. Harrington is among the most likable players in golf, not just on the senior tour, but anywhere pros tee it up. It does not hurt that his high-pitched Irish brogue is a most entertaining accent, but what makes him special is an accessibility which combined with a sterling resume, 2 British Opens and 1 PGA Championship, in addition to his 3 U.S. Senior Open titles, serves him up as a guy that you want in your foursome. Just be prepared somewhere along the way to be told that you suck. "I'm the youngest of 5 boys. I'm a little bit of a contrarian. I like nothing better than to tell you you're wrong," Harrington said, chuckling. "So I get a sense of satisfaction out of telling somebody who's a bad chipper, no, you're actually meant to lift your head when you're chipping, not keep it down." Everybody goes, "What?" "I get great joy of telling a beginner, no, you're not meant to keep your head still. You're not meant to keep your feet still." But wanting to be right is not the main reason Harrington produces his videos. He generally gets a kick out of helping golfers improve. "I do enjoy trying to make people better as well," he said. "I just love the idea of trying to change somebody's golfing world around. I find it interesting." Harrington joins Miller Barber as the only 3-time winners of the National Senior Championship. Given that, it's probably wise for low, mid, or high handicappers to pay heed to Harrington's helpful hints and occasional harangues on his social media channel. The danger of coming off as a golf know-it-all is having the undesirable label of smartest guy in the room attached to you. But in Harrington's case, that room feels like a party house where it's hard not to have fun. "I was going to say that golf instructional videos are boring, but what Padraig does is not boring because he's funny," Sink said. "He's not trying to be funny, he just is because he's so into it, and people like that." Paddy isn't ready to quit his day job. The thrill of needing to hit quality shots at crunch time of a major tournament still motivates him. He did it a lot during the final round on July 5th, birdieing the first 2 holes and closing it out with 7 straight pars on the back 9. Harrington now holds the distinction of being the first player to win back-to-back U.S. Senior Opens since Alan Doyle back in 2005-2006. He knows how to play this game, and at Kyoto he showed it. Not on YouTube, but live and in person. OR delivers a W amid Arrow McLaren rumors. As rumors continue to escalate around Arrow McLaren, as it works to solidify its 2027 IndyCar Series driver lineup, the team continues to win. Hours before the Indy 200 in Mid-Ohio on July 5th, IndyStar learned that Arrow McLaren has granted Christian Lundgaard permission to negotiate with other teams while also informing Nolan Siegel that he won't be back with the team in 2027. Despite the chatter surrounding the team's 2 free agent drivers and speculation that Scott Dixon and Felix Rundqvist will be in Papaya next year, Arrow McLaren's performance hasn't slipped on track. Lundgaard's win at the Grand Prix at Road America 2 weeks ago was followed up with another trip to Victory Lane, this time for Paddy O'Ward. After Lundgaard started on the pole with O'Ward beside him on the front row, those two controlled the entirety of the race. After O'Ward passed Lundgaard, who went wide into a turn due to what he called a mistake of my own, the Mexican driver led 45 of the last 49 laps, only falling behind momentarily after his final 2 pit stops. O'Ward, who finished second in the IndyCar Championship last year and is 5th through its races this year, finally made the podium for the first time in 2026. Poor luck with precautions, underwhelming pit stops, and mild frustration with his car have kept O'Ward from flourishing this year, but Sunday's caution-free race provided some relief. The bad luck doesn't last forever, but the good luck also doesn't, O'Ward said. Today was a simple showing of execution. It's just nice to kind of put ourselves in a position to keep on climbing, keep on building on this great momentum that we've had, because I do feel like some good results have run away from us just from little detail. Arrow McLaren had its best weekend of the season amid the chaos surrounding it. Lundgaard finished second, while Siegel was 10th, tying his best result of the year. The two drivers in contract years both hesitated to reveal much about their conversations with the team. Mainly, team principal Tony Kanaan and Siegel denied being informed of an upcoming departure, saying, "I think you know as much as I do at this point." "I still don't know anything," Siegel said in his pit box after the race. "So for me, it's very simple. I'm going to do the best job that I can in the car, and if I do a good job in the car, then it'll certainly help my future in IndyCar. This is where I want to be. It's where I want to stay. And honestly, the past few weeks, I feel like I've done what I've needed to do to show that I will be here." When asked about his next steps, Lundgaard said, "It isn't really where my head's at now," keeping his response brief. "I'm going to go take a shower, I'm going to sleep, and then see what comes," the Danish driver added. Kanaan came into 2026 making his expectation of Siegel clear and public. He told Motorsport, "I don't think I can keep Siegel if he doesn't finish in the top 10 of the championship. I mean, even after the best 2-month span of the 21-year-old's IndyCar career, Siegel ranks just 20th. With Lundgaard, the guidelines for exercising his option or extending him long-term weren't as concrete. Publicly, all Kanaan said was that Lundgaard needed to win, which he's done twice to pair with 3 other podium finishes. Lundgaard is 30 in the championship, and although Arrow McLaren is yet to decline his team option, it appears that what he's done isn't enough in the team's eyes. "We haven't reached an agreement yet," Kanaan said. "I think you guys will see in the near future what the team is doing. We haven't been able to agree on a couple things, but I think as a team principal, I'm responsible for running this team as best as I can, and I think Christian has shown his potential, but also there are other options out there, and I've got to consider all of them. The decision hasn't been made yet. Although people keep putting people in my cars, it's not done until it's done. Lundgaard's still very much in play and is an extremely capable race car driver. We'll see what's going to happen." Through nonstop driving changes at Arrow McLaren since McLaren Racing bought a stake in the team in 2020, O'Ward has been the one constant. O'Ward, who drove a partial schedule for Carlin Racing in 2019, joined Arrow McLaren in 2020, and he quickly became the most popular driver in IndyCar and the unofficial frontman of McLaren's racing venture back into IndyCar, which it abandoned in 1979. Until Lundgaard's 2 wins this year, no one else besides O'Ward had won a race for the team this decade. That made O'Ward's lackluster start to the year surprising, although he remained in and around the top 5. O'Ward, who's just 27, is the oldest of the team's current drivers. At a time like this, when outside noise has surely made it difficult for Arrow McLaren to maximize its on-track results, having someone with O'Ward's skills and improved leadership led to another victory. There are a lot of things going on, a lot of distraction. We're able to keep this team on track with what we came here to do, Kanaan said. "We came here to win the race, we came here to finish 1, 2, 3, and we finished 1, 2. We're trying to win this championship." The win was O'Ward's second at Mid-Ohio and 10th in his IndyCar career. O'Ward knew that fortune would eventually swing his way, saying, "I sure as heck am not getting worse." He was focused on his job inside the cockpit, and on Sunday the outside circumstances went his way. "The most important thing in this business is you need to be comfortable and confident of what you can do and about what you can control," O'Ward said. "Sometimes you can't control everything, and sometimes you will do everything perfectly and things won't work out. But I don't think it's a reason to lose motivation or lose hunger. I know it was just a matter of time for things to kind of click, or at least not go against us." As Arrow McLaren prepares to put new teammates around O'Ward again, he shows why he is stuck around on a team has been rather ruthless in his decisions to get rid of drivers. Ward is still in search of his ultimate goals of winning the Indianapolis 500 and IndyCar Championship, but Sunday served as a reminder that Arrow McLaren still revolves around him. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Briscoe breaks Cup Series drought. With all the attention on Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick and the way they've racked up NASCAR Cup Series wins for Toyota, it's been easy to overlook Chase Briscoe. Not so much anymore. Following up on a runner-up finish on the Sonoma Raceway road course in California, Briscoe capped the popular weekend at Chicagoland Speedway with his first victory of the year on July 5th. We have not been as consistent, I would say, as Hamlin and Reddick, said Briscoe, who won 3 races and finished third in the 2025 championship. But from a speed standpoint, I feel like we've been right here with them. Briscoe, who's 31 years old, held up Joe Gibbs' racing teammate Christopher Bell, who also was chasing his first win of the season, by .276 seconds. Hamlin took third, giving team owner Joe Gibbs the top 3 spots in the finishing order on a night Toyota's claimed 7 of the top 10. The manufacturer has won 12 of the first 19 races, led by Reddick with 5 and Hamlin with 4. It was definitely burning me up not winning more than ever before, especially just knowing that our cars are really fast, said Briscoe, who won 3 times and finished third in the 2025 championship, but had gone 20 races without a trip to victory lane. There's a couple that kind of slipped away this year, and when your teammates are winning, it makes it worse as a competitor because you know they have equal opportunity to what you have and they're performing better. So there's definitely a lot of pressure to go and run good. And it ebbs and flows, right? Like a year from now, the Toyotas could be way off. And the Chevys and Fords could be unbelievable. So when you're good, you have to take advantage of it. William Byron, who won the first 2 stages, finished 4th after leading a race-high 94 of the 267 laps. Alex Bowman, a Hendrick Motorsports Chevy teammate of Byron's, was 5th. The race was competitive with 28 lead changes among 13 drivers. The last of them, though, came via pit strategy and execution when Briscoe pitted a lap before Byron and jumped from 3rd to 1st on their final stop. That's part of why I love my job, calling races and having those opportunities, crew chief James Small said of the decision. The green flag cycle and the strategy section of it makes it so much fun. Bell, driving with a soft cast on his broken left wrist, sat 1.2 seconds behind when he took second from Byron with 19 laps to go. Bell closed to Briscoe's bumper but could never pull alongside. I was sideways and drifting on exit a lot of the time, Briscoe said. It was a super intense battle. Out of all the people that were going to catch me, I was glad it was him, just because I knew he was going to race me super clean. Obviously, it was a lot of fun for sure. Challenging for a win didn't look likely when Bell made contact with another car on pit road on his second pit stop, but his crew fixed the damage and put him back in contention. They made a great adjustment and got the car driving great the last run, but I was a straightaway plus behind, it seemed like, Bell said. We almost went to victory lane. Toyotas are fast. FIFA rejects Belgium appeal on overturned Balogun red card. FIFA has swiftly rejected an appeal from Belgium Soccer Federation over Valérien Balogun's red card suspension, saying that the federation was not a party to the proceedings. There's been a growing firestorm over FIFA's last-minute decision to allow U.S. forward Balogun to play in the World Cup round of 16 match on July 6th against Belgium, following his red card against Bosnia-Herzegovina. The controversy has ratcheted up after the revelation the U.S. President Donald Trump contacted FIFA President Gianni Infantino directly in an effort to overturn the decision. Trump himself said as much on Monday. All I did, I asked for a review because I didn't think it was a foul, Trump told reporters on July 6th in the Oval Office. The RFBA said on Sunday that it was astonished by FIFA's decision to suspend Balogun's ban rather than enforcing its usual punishment of an automatic one-game suspension. Though the Federation filed a last-ditch appeal to reverse the reversal, FIFA announced around 7 hours before kickoff on Monday that Belgium didn't have standing to challenge the decision. The FIFA Appeal Committee has rendered a request submitted by the Royal Belgian Football Association as inadmissible in relation to the FIFA Disciplinary Committee's decision to suspend for 1 year the match suspension imposed on the United States national team player Florian Balogun following his dismissal for a direct red card during the FIFA World Cup 2026 match between the United States and Bosnia and Herzegovina, played on July 1st, 2026 at San Francisco Bay Area Stadium. A FIFA statement read, "The chairperson of the FIFA Appeal Committee, Neil Eggleston, who's from the United States, was not involved in the decision. The request was rendered inadmissible on the grounds that the RBFA is not a part of the proceedings and as such has no standing to appeal the decision. The decision seemed to signal the end of the saga. Balogun was set to start for the U.S. as it looked to reach a World Cup quarterfinal for only the second time in its history. The striker has been one of the team's top players in this tournament, leading the team in goals with 3 in 4 games." T for 2, Taylor and Travis wed their way. In the end, size didn't matter. The weeks of breathless speculation and opining are over. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are married, and they did it all their way, in massive celebratory form, with celebrity friends Bradley Cooper, Ed Sheeran, Patrick Holmes, Selena Gomez, and more, in a famous venue with a "Just T&T Married" message against a pink backdrop, alighting the video screens as their chosen venue of Madison Square Garden. Was a wedding at that hulking fortress in Midtown Manhattan gauche? Or does someone of Swift's wealth and inherent goodness, she and Kelce dropped $26 million in donations to several charities this week, deserve to have whatever she wants, wherever she wants, with however many celebrants she wants? Did the woman who has spent a career immersed in romance with all of its joys and sorrows really exchange vows in what's essentially her workplace? Or was this sly messaging telling the world that taking the conventional step of marriage doesn't diminish her ambitions to get back to a life spent creating music? Yes, in the end, Swift got her fairy tale wedding complete with a Christian Dior haute couture dress and Christian Louboutin shoes. And she celebrated with more than paper rings by doing things greater than dating the boy on the football team, as she memorably, prophetically lyricized in 2008's 15. She found a kindred spirit in Travis Kelce, her human exclamation mark, the guy who saved her from the fate of Ophelia, and us from another album of tortured poetry. But Swift always has been an intriguing combination of supremely canny and hopelessly romantic, and she leaned on both of these defining traits to pull off the celebrity wedding of the century, even with some cranky locals grousing about street closures, as if that didn't happen last month with the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals, or for, say, every festival, parade, movie shoot, or presidential visit in the area, and police presence, which the couple reportedly paid a hefty sum, as befits a private event. By hosting a reported 100 people for a comparably intimate rehearsal dinner on July 2nd at Infosys Theater at MSG, and supersizing everything the next night for a victory lap around an MSG reportedly transformed into a wedding wonderland, Swift sent a clear message. She may gravitate to every spotlight and share her poetic diary entries with her fans, but some things are sacred. In the weeks leading to what some called our royal wedding, media outlets worldwide, guilty as charged, scurried for any whiff of clues with the intensity of Swifties decoding if the number of steps she took walking across the Soho sidewalk add up to the potential date of her next album release. Swift likely was sitting somewhere with a cat-like grin, watching and hearing the false rumors The silly speculation of everything from guests to attire to performers, the criticisms that she flaunted her wealth as a self-made billionaire twice over during tough economic times. And hopefully she crackled, assured with the knowledge that no one outmastered the mastermind. This was her wedding, her way, as it should be. And finally, it's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Musician Ringo Starr turns 86. Actor Joe Spano turns 80. Singer David Hodo from the Village People, 79. Actor Roz Ryan, 75. Filmmaker Akiva Goldsman, 64. Bassist Mark White, who plays with the Spin Doctors, turned 64. Singer-songwriter Vonda Shepard, 63. Comedian-actor Mo Collins, 61. Comedian-actor Jim Gaffigan, 60. Actor Jose Fox, 58. Actor Robin Wigert, 57. Actor Bernice Bejo, 50. Actor Hamish Linklater, 50. Drummer Ashton Irwin from the 5 Seconds of Summer turned 32. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for July 7th, 2026. We read from the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Jeff Shapiro. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, with episode number 4 of Nora O'Donnell's book, We the Women. At 3 o'clock is National Geographic, and at 4 o'clock is a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We broadcast daily readings of printed matter to those who are blind or have a print disability throughout Buffalo, Western New York, and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. Almost 40 years and more than 300,000 hours of radio readings to those without sight. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNET. Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service broadcast studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga. Please let others know about your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,